What's up everybody, this is BR, and if you've been keeping up with PC gaming for the past couple of days, then you'd know that Nvidia unveiled their DLSS 3 technology that will be available with their 4000 series graphics cards, which Nvidia has claimed, especially in their official blog post, that it boosts performance overall with many games by utilizing an AI neural network to increase the frame rate of games. And in this video, we're going to discuss why that is total bullshit, and how Nvidia is purposefully and maliciously misleading the public with this blog post, which is to the equivalent of graphical snake oil. But before I do, let me quickly just say that I have to apologize to my Patreon members for not uploading recently. It's been almost 2 weeks since I last uploaded, and I have to apologize because I'm not keeping up with my promise of making daily content. I've been caught up with school, and that's been taking a lot of my time, and I recently got sick, if you can't tell already. So a huge shout out to my 2 Patreon subscribers who are still supporting me to this day, even though I haven't uploaded in a while. Thank you so much to Jarrell LeeBrown for sticking with me since the beginning, and Japes for continuing to support my channel. Anyway, back to the video. So before we talk about how DLSS 3 is extremely misleading, we have to talk about what exactly it is. DLSS 3 is a technology by Nvidia that takes advantage of the 4000 series architecture to implement some pretty impressive AI technology, all having to do with PC graphics. Most notably, and the most pushed by Nvidia, is the technology that allows for the creation of additional frames using AI. So if you have a game that's running at 30 frames per second, you can actually boost it up to 60 frames per second by having the AI create frames in between each of those frames. They're labeling it optical multi-frame generation. And in some form, this technology, just like ray tracing, has existed for a while now. If you're familiar with Adobe Premiere, you can actually boost up the frame rate of a lower frame rate video by rendering the video using a technology known as optical flow. This is basically the same idea, creating fake frames. However, what Nvidia has been able to do is, with their new architecture, they are able to produce these fake frames in real time. And I have to be honest, this is a very impressive piece of technology. Credit where credit is due. But that's where the praise ends, because really it's just a technical showcase. It shouldn't be a marketing ploy, and the way that Nvidia has executed their marketing with it is completely malicious. On their article talking about DLSS 3 and going into huge depth about this optical multi-frame generation technology, they keep claiming that the technology improves performance in any game, especially those that are CPU bounded, since all this technology is done exclusively on the GPU, which on the surface level seems pretty accurate, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you are still getting more frames. The game is definitely going to look smoother. But that's where the issue lies. It's not increasing performance at all. Because even as Nvidia has admitted in that same blog post, this new technology is a post-processing effect. If a game is being rendered at 30 FPS, then it's still only 30 FPS. It's still only going to generate 30 real frames. 30 pieces of new information. DLSS 3 does not create new information, instead it uses old information to create a new frame, but not necessarily new information. In fact, that new frame could be pretty inaccurate. It could show information that's not even actually there, also known as artifacting. And while DLSS 3 has been shown to be pretty accurate, it still doesn't get rid of the fact that Nvidia is basically lying. There is no performance increase. It's all an illusion. But don't get me wrong, gaming has for the longest time relied on illusions to deliver pretty good looking games, and especially high frame rates. I mean, you have things like cube maps, global illumination, shaders, bump maps, all these technologies that create the illusion of higher graphical fidelity. However, these techniques aren't used to push hardware that is meant to be considered more powerful than the last generation, especially at these new ridiculously high Nvidia GPU prices. And rather than more accurately just saying that it's a way to increase how smooth the game is without necessarily improving the performance, the title of the blog post is literally AI-powered performance multiplier, even if it doesn't actually do that thing. Those made-up frames aren't creating new information based on the game's code. It's only using information that's already been rendered. So the issue isn't the fact that it's not impressive, the issue is that it's completely misleading. Nvidia shouldn't be saying that this is an increase in performance, because that is not true at all. And again, I just want to restate, this isn't an issue of whether or not this technology is impressive or if it doesn't count as performance. It's just that Nvidia calling it a performance boost is completely misleading. You're not rendering frames more efficiently or in a faster time interval. You're just filling in the blanks to make it look a little bit nicer, which is also the goal of DLSS for higher resolutions. But to call it a performance boost is unethical, and it is wrong. And personally, if you ask me, it's also kind of pointless. Nvidia has been unveiling a lot of this AI technology that creates something out of nothing. And while it is definitely impressive, I don't think that should be the focus with graphics cards. I understand that we have reached a theoretical limit on how many transistors we can put on a graphics card and a CPU. How much hardware we could squeeze into the smallest space possible. And for a corporation, news like this is definitely disheartening, because you know your investors are going to be wanting more. And that's what this new DLSS technology seems to be, as a ploy for Nvidia to appease its investors. However, that doesn't make this action in any way correct. Personally, I think the better route to go is to just make more efficient cards. Not faster cards, just efficient. Having the same amount as last generation, but for a lot less. I really do think that the worst problem with graphics cards nowadays is how much power they consume. I mean, you need 3 freaking cables to power the 4090. And while that might not be the same with lower tier cards, it really does show the state of how we are with power consumption. And pretty much every graphics card manufacturer suffers this. Nvidia, AMD, and even Intel with their new card. So in my opinion, graphics cards really don't need to become more powerful. I think they've pretty much reached the epitome. Graphical fidelity has really reached the limit, honestly. Going forward, we're really not going to see that huge jump in graphical fidelity anymore. Why do you think there's been so much focus on real-time ray tracing? Because that's one part where the technology does, at the very least, objectively look better. But of course, with diminishing returns. And honestly, global illumination, parallax cube maps, and screen space reflections pretty much do the same job. And for a lot less. And I think game developers are also reaching their limit as well. The amount of effort that it takes to have really high quality games nowadays has caused a little bit of distaste with AAA studios. And instead of having the cutting edge, maybe just focus on what really matters. Especially if AAA game studios really don't want that 4-year development cycle. If they're really going to try to release games on a regular basis, they're really going to have to budget themselves on graphical fidelity. Because at some point, they're just not going to be able to afford the cutting edge anymore. It will just take too much time to implement. So in conclusion, Nvidia shouldn't be selling this new DLSS technology as a straight up performance boost. That is a lie. And I really do think that graphics cards should focus more on efficiency rather than graphical fidelity, especially when the power draw is just too much of a concern. And with game developers seemingly reaching their limit with graphical fidelity, it really does seem pointless to continue to advance graphics beyond what we have now. And that's pretty much the end of this video. And now I'd like to hear from you. What do you think about Nvidia DLSS? Do you think graphics have pretty much reached that, end all be all? Or do you just not care about graphics and really want game developers to focus on what is the most important part of a game? How has your reaction been to a lot of the recent AAA releases? Do you think maybe the workload of having the cutting edge is just too much for game studios nowadays? Make sure to leave your opinion down in the comment section down below. If you found this video interesting, like it if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it. If you'd like to see more content just like this, make sure to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, I do have a Patreon in the description. Thank you so much to my fellow Patreons for sticking with me for this long, especially without uploading for so long. And I will talk to you guys later.